Watching News at Prime, let's bring you this conversation now. The Special Investigating Unit has told Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts that it saved the state from losing over 3 billion rand in medical legal corruption cases. Over 50 of these cases from unscrupulous lawyers were picked up during the 95 investigations conducted. Let's speak now to the SIU spokesperson, Kaizer Kganyago. Mr. Kganyago, good evening to you, and thank you for your time. Let's take you back to what you told Parliament, and that is an amount of 3 billion rand was essentially saved by yourselves from these unscrupulous lawyers. But what more can you tell South Africans who, frankly, are quite frustrated by the levels of corruption in our country when they hear that it's lawyers now who are busy defrauding the state?
Good evening, Cody, and good evening to your viewers. This is a very sad state where we find ourselves in a position where people that we should be entrusting ourselves on in terms of being the friends of the courts and so on are the ones that are using scrupulous ways of defrauding not only government, but also people who are unsuspecting, elderly people, people who are sick, and making sure that they get whatever money out of them with the view of ultimately just living a good life while those people are suffering. And that's where we are at the present moment with this kind of investigation that we are doing.
What is shocking is that nurses, you told Parliament, were also implicated in this scheme because, as the head of the SIU said, it was found that they stole medical records to perpetuate the fraudulent activity. So it's almost a syndicate, is it?
No, it is definitely a syndicate, and you could clearly see that this was planned, because what they will do is they had what we call touts. Touts are people that they hire who will be going around in the villages and looking for children who might be mentally disturbed and so on and so on, and then create a scenario where they then attach this child's illness to a specific medical institution and say this child was born in this institution, even though the child was born at home. And then they then talk to the nurses to then create, make sure that the files disappear, that the files about that child disappear. They then go and then say to them, to the hospital, we now are applying to get the contents of this file. And they know very well that the file is not there. And then when the hospital is not able to provide that, then they then claim from the hospital for not being able to provide the file and then sue the hospital for medical negligence. The hospital will therefore not be in a position to defend itself because they do not have the contents of the file.
The Legal Practice Council, this is the body that, in my simplistic language, would monitor the conduct of lawyers. What is their duty when it comes to such practices by lawyers?
Their duty is to deal with the issue of conduct. And therefore, what we do in all of this, when we find all of these law firms that have done all of this, we have referred that to them so that they can then deal with them in terms of the conduct that they have done the oath for. And that is going very well because the LPC is working with us. As far back as yesterday, they were able to tell us the progress of where they are around these matters, and they are following up on all the lawyers that we have sent to them. And we are very comfortable that we will work together with them because we need to take these people out of the system so that the other people should not be part of the schemes that they have, because they are doing it to people that are unsuspecting. And in instances where, for example, there are people where they've claimed that they will do the ramps for them because they are disabled and so on, and they don't do those things. People still continue to live in poverty. We have shown pictures of those places, because we went physically looking for these people, and we found them, and we found the dire state that they were living in. And that was really shocking when the parliamentarians were seeing those pictures.
Let's talk about the provinces that are susceptible to this kind of corruption. Which are most targeted?
The most targeted province was Eastern Cape and Gauteng. That is where we started, and that's where we saw this kind of trends that were developing. At the time when we were starting the investigation in 2017 on a secondment, the medical legal liability for Gauteng was 15.9 billion. Wow. And the one for Eastern Cape, Eastern Cape was 15.9 billion, and Gauteng was 21.2 billion. And those were the most targeted. But when we went into all the other provinces, it was similarly the case, but it was on a lesser scale.
And so with this kind of corruption that you are uncovering, what is the department that is obviously the target here? And that's the Department of Health, because it runs health facilities in the country. What is their stance? How is this going to be stemmed?
From their side, we have been working with them, because obviously we work with all the provincial departments and the national department and the Minister of Health. And they are very clear that they are working with us to make sure that this has to be stopped, because it will affect money and the services that they need to render going forward. You must just understand that all these monies that we are talking about were not budgeted for. Therefore, they will have to be taken from somewhere, which means there will be a reduction of buying of medication, equipment, and so on, and this will perpetuate. Therefore, they have committed to deal with all the officials of the department that are involved in this, and we are giving them all the names of the people that we have found so that they deal with them. But they themselves, in 2015, had already said and had a summit where they looked at the possible solution. Among other things, they indicated issues of patient safety, administrative solution, and legal solution. Under legal solution, among other things, they are looking at a better way of dealing with this thing. For an example, why should we be paying a lawyer now for loss of income that will happen 10, 15 years to come? And things like that have to be looked into so that we can maybe pay if there is negligence in one way or another, have this payment spread over the period when the child is there. And we are also looking at other departments where we can think of saying Department of Human Settlement can come into the picture and, for example, indicate that when the child has got problems, can we take some of this money that is awarded and build a house for him rather than give it to the lawyer who will then just eat that money on luxury vehicles?
Yeah. All right. Can I change tack for a moment? Let's move away from health matters. You've investigated Eskom before. If my understanding is correct, you're going back there again. If I am correct, what is the scope of investigations this time?
Yeah, it is basically the same thing, but we have now been broadened with more of the power stations that we were not able to reach. Because what happened is, in the previous proclamation, we only were dealing with other power stations. And now we are looking into the big power stations that were mentioned in the Zondo Commission in the main. And we are now going to look at all the issues that we're looking at, the issues of coal, the issues of the diesel that was done, the issues of transportations, and that's all that this new proclamation is taking us to.
I see. And perhaps finally, once the SIU is done with its investigations, some South Africans may be under the impression that those cases that you then come up with are court ready. Just remind us again whether the SIU, once you've conducted your investigations, those cases that you want or may refer to the prosecuting authority, are they ready to go to court, or the prosecutors must now conduct their own investigations or almost verification processes before they can take matters to court?
Only our legislation is very clear. It says when we do our investigation, you must remember we're doing it with the view of recovering the money, and we use the civil litigation part to deal with that. But the Act says when we find there is criminality, we then take that and we give it to the National Prosecuting Authority. In this country, we've got only one National Prosecuting Authority. Therefore, when we give it to them, we give them even the evidence. It then becomes their responsibility to look at the evidence that we have given them and say, we are happy or we are not happy, we need to investigate more, because they have to now look at it with the eye of a criminal prosecution. And then if there is a need for them to do more, they will do so. But if there is no need for them to do more, they are happy with the evidence that would have given to them, they can proceed through the prosecution of all of those people.
Kaizer Kganyago, the spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, let's continue encouraging you to do the good work that you do.